All right, everybody. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. Wanted to do a quick update here on DraftKings Incorporated, ticker symbol DKNG, listed here on the Nasdaq. Stock closed a touch below $36 a share, down almost a point, about 2.33% here on the day. Nasdaq's been red the last couple of sessions. Dow went on a nice little rebound here going into the close, but DKNG, we spoke about this two times over the last couple of months. I did an update here on May 28th. And we had the big drop down. If you recall, Illinois raised their gambling tax or whatever it was, and everyone chunked down DraftKings, saying this could potentially eat into their profits. We go into this little downward consolidation. I was saying this time, in my opinion, buy calls with some time. Stock's going to probably run and get back up to 40 plus. And of course, I did another video here, the 17th, basically just talking about how awesome I am. Then you can see the stock kept going here, almost 45, stops, rejects at the trend line, pulls back, flattens out, tests the support trend line, has a bounce about halfway of that run back to that gap. Perfectly. Back to that gap at about 40, and then you can see they pulled it back, and they've since kind of just been bouncing it around this trend line. I know today technically it's below the trend line. However, as you see, we do have earnings coming up just in a couple of days. So we have tomorrow is Wednesday, and then we have Thursday, and then the company reports after earnings. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about two things. First of all, in the numbers here, look at the estimate on the EPS side. A loss of less than a cent on revenue of 1.1111 billion. Now, also, 17 and a third billion market cap. The EPS kind of been hit and miss here. We're 2 for 2 for the last 4 quarters. But I wanted to show you the step ups that we're seeing here in the net margin percentage and the fact that we could potentially get a swing to profit for Q2 potentially. We could get a random surprise. And in my opinion, I think that's going to pump the stock up even further. But of course, we know earnings, anything can happen, it's unpredictable. But I want to show you here, you can see net margin percentage minus 51.6%. Then we had a big step up to less than minus 9%. Then we had a step back to about minus 36%. Then we step back up to minus 3.6%. Then we pull back minus 12. And if this trend continues, we should technically step up again, which is probably why analysts are basically having a consensus estimate of less than 1 cent a share, which is why I'm saying if the company happens to post, positive half a cent, 1 cent a share, 2 cents a share, whatever it might be, in my opinion, I think that's going to drive much more volume into DKNG. Because the revenue of about 1.11 billion, if we go back the last 2 quarters, we can see we've come in above that estimate. We've come in above that number for the last 2 consecutive quarters. So, of course, that doesn't mean anything. Nothing's guaranteed. But in my opinion, based on their recent trajectory, I guess I'd give the company the benefit of the doubt on the revenue side. But, if they come, let's just say, in my eyes, if they report in line on the EPS side, and let's say they beat on the revenue side, stock's probably going to, pop up to like 40, and then can slowly maybe run up to the trend line. People will come out, maybe up their targets again, put a buy rating on it potentially. However, if they happen to come out and swing to Q2 profits here and surprise on the EPS side, in my opinion, I think the stock is immediately going to shoot up to this trend line of about 45. And then we're going to potentially break even higher. And we may potentially break above this resistance trend line here, old support, and we may chunk straight back up to the high 40s, potentially 50 plus, which of course would bring us to new 52-week highs. So if the company really delivers here on Thursday, we could potentially see a really big move here on DKNG. On the flip side, if the company happens to let's just say report in line or a slight miss on the revenue side, but also reports a wider than expected loss, chances are they're going to chunk it down again. And I do see some support at maybe around like 33, maybe like 32.80. But realistically, they can potentially bring it all the way down here to a fib of, as you see, like 31 and a third, potentially even the high 30s. But if you're a short-term call holder, obviously that's really going to suck, and, you're going to probably take a big loss. But if you're a longer-term holder, In my opinion, I would view that as an opportunity personally, right? To potentially step in, buy more shares on a big dip and, just hold it, tuck it away for the longer term growth. So we know it could go either way, but I also wanted to show on the technical side. Here, if we go back just recently to last Thursday, the 25th, you can see top left of the screen, the O, the H, the L, the C, the open, the high, the low, the close. You can see the low, 35.30. Today's low right here, 35.30. So technically, we just made a double bottom. And also, as we came down and touched that 35.30 low to the potential double bottom, you can see we came back with what appears to be a bullish hammer, and then we spiked up even further above 36 and started to consolidate back down sideways. So, in my opinion, I do think it pops back up here above this support trend line, tries to get back above that 20-day moving average. But of course, earnings are due out Thursday. But I do feel that this company can be up tomorrow and Thursday going into earnings. You can maybe see like between like 37 and a quarter to like, 38 and a half potentially, off of that momentum going into earnings. And of course, if you happen to jump in tomorrow, if there is momentum going into earnings, if you jump in some calls tomorrow, hypothetically, some people like to secure profits before earnings because it's unpredictable. Some people like to sell 70, 80% of the position and just hold a couple of runners going into earnings. Other people like to completely liquidate the position and then potentially reposition going into earnings, or wait for earnings and then take a position the next day, right? So I know that everyone is different. So obviously I'm not going to name any specific strategy. But I will say, in my opinion, going into these earnings, I personally would give them the benefit of the doubt, and especially with the technicals here again, potential double bottom. So you might be able to make a couple of bucks, unless, of course, the NASDAQ continues to get smacked up, but I don't think so. I know we had some earnings come out. I saw Microsoft was down, AMD was up. But we know that earnings are a gamble, and it's a big risk from quarter to quarter if we play earnings. But let's look at stock charts real quick. And I just want to show you here on the daily, you can see this 50-day moving average, 38 and a third, 200-day, about 38 and 3/4. And of course, we have our mid-Bollinger Band, 37.19. So that's why I'm saying we can easily start to run up here with some momentum going into earnings, getting back above 37, and potentially even retesting these moving averages at 38 and change. MACD recently crossed to the downside, looked like it tried to retest, and we had a down day today. But again, if that double bottom's lining up, we might have a nice pop tomorrow. Potential MACD cross to the upside. RSI sub 42 on the daily, so we could gain some momentum over the next day or two, in my opinion. On the weekly side, you can see RSI basically same thing, right? It's in the mid 40s, 44 and a quarter. You can see we had a couple of candles here trying to hold that 50-day moving average. Then we recently broke below it, and this is why I'm saying as well, you can see the 200-day sitting here at about 33 and a half, bottom Bollinger Band 33.17, which is why I mentioned before we could potentially have, not a huge drop if we get a bad earnings report. We could only pull back just a couple of points to about 33, maybe high 32s, but again, see how we were down here, basically formed this double bottom, and this was down here at like, 26. Actually, that's not really a double bottom, but that was down here at like 26 and change. So, at any point, we can, of course, break down below, and we can test the 30 or potentially sub 30 psychological level before it finds its bottom and decides to start curling back upwards. But over the longer term, everyone pretty much seems pretty bullish, analysts and you all alike for the most part. Usually when I make a video about DraftKings, everyone kind of says the same thing, like, yeah, their revenue's going up, it's getting bigger and bigger, they're probably going to keep growing over time. So we're all kind of on the same side of the fence with this one. And of course, look at how the stock has performed throughout 23 and basically most of 24. And if you recall, I know I started the channel like 2 years ago, maybe like back here or something, but if you recall, I did mention basically during this whole time frame that defensive stocks, in my opinion. And when the economy gets rough and times get rough, right, people, they gamble a little bit more, they smoke a little more, they drink a little bit more, and a lot of the alcohol companies have been stable. As you see, something like DraftKings was on the up and up for quite some time. And of course, one of my favorite stocks, Philip Morris, PM, hitting a new 52-week high again today, touching almost $115 a share. And I remember we did that update when it was down in the low 90s, sub 90 for everybody. So hopefully a couple of people got in that one. But the gist of what I'm saying, I'm sure you can appreciate the strategy. And as you see, DraftKings has benefited nicely over about a run for about 18 months. And now we've kind of quieted down again with that Illinois tax increase news coming out. But I don't think it should really affect the business too much. And again, even though they take that hit, the revenue is still growing. I know people are worried about profitability, but the one thing we see about DraftKings is that we're constantly expanding and growing that market share, growing that footprint, right? And even like we looked before, if we double check the news real quick, they, I don't know if I mentioned it before, my apologies, but obviously they're talking about the Olympics. Oh yeah, bets coming in. Needham, less than a week ago, still maintaining their $60 price target. Respect. And see, something like this. DraftKings plans to introduce online sportsbook in Washington, D.C. So that's what I mean. It's like even though you get a slight step back, potential tax increase here in the state of Illinois, you're still branching out and exploring new markets and bringing in new revenue and new dollars to the business. So chances are, at the end of the day, it's all going to cancel itself out, and growth is growth. And I do know that technically EPS has been negative, but annually growing at about a billion plus in revenue year over year. So of course we know could go lower at any time, but overall, in my opinion, I do like DKNG personally. For the record, I do not have a position in DKNG, nor will I take a position in DKNG going into earnings. But just wanted to do a quick update here looking at DKNG, just talking about them in general, and of course talking about some moving averages and some potential tech analysis here. Again, double bottom and 2 days going into earnings, so we could have some momentum here, bringing the stock back up in the immediate short term. And then maybe we'll do an update Thursday, Friday, after the company reports earnings, and we'll check the numbers together. But that's pretty much it, so I'll end it there. Once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up, algorithm, helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But of course, more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they're very uncertain. So I do want to wish all of you success. Hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Of course, I start choking at the end. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.